And we've spoken about India and New Zealand, and one thing we wanted to bring back is the Ask CricBlog section, and
Yes.
that sort of conversation is a perfect segue to the first question that was asked: is how has the perception of
Mm.
Indian Test team in Australia changed over the decades as we look forward to the Border Gavaskar Trophy, let's say from 2003 to now? This was asked by Cricket_Broken from the Broken Cricket Dreams cricket blog.
Great question.
What do you think as an Australian?
Oh, huge difference. I thought in 2003-4, India really punched above their weight. Incredible performance there. They won a test. That Adelaide win was amazing. 07-08, the Sydney test I thought was terrible in terms of the umpiring, and India were very hard done by. I admit that. But even then, Australia were always favoured. Australia were always in the box seat to win that series. And then don't get me started on 2011, 12, and 14, 15. India didn't fire a shot. They didn't have any
Mm.
bowling prowess in those series. But then fast forward to 18, 19, and 20, 21. Yes, the batting was great. Pujara was brilliant, but India were able to take 20 wickets. They looked threatening with the ball. They never let Australia get away. So over time, it's like India are a different team now. They can come here and they can not only maybe win a test here or there, but actually win a series. And that's why the
And
perception changed a lot.
and look, you speak about 14, 15. I think it was a big changing point in India's
100%.
Test fortunes, because that's when Virat Kohli took over, and Dhoni retired in the middle of the Test series after Melbourne, I think, and um, that's when sort of that
Yes.
fast bowling uh revolution happened in Indian Test cricket, and
Yes.
that was really great in terms of setting up those 18, 19, and 2021 victories as well, and a lot of overseas victories elsewhere. So I think, yes, as an Indian, you know, being in Australia for the last 10 years, the attitude has changed a lot towards the Indian Test cricket uh,
Mm.
team in general. But a lot of it, and people might not like me saying it, but a lot of it has come from Virat Kohli. People will identify him quickly, like, oh yes, we love Virat Kohli. We wish he was an Australian. That's what everyone has
Oh,
told
yeah.
me.
Man, if he was our captain over the years, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, I
Not to
mean,
say we, yeah.
let's not even talk about Sachin, because we'll be here all day. I mean,
Yeah.
what he means to Australians as a cricketer. I
Of
mean,
course.
hold him on a very high pedestal, and
Virat Kohli will be
then we
remembered as
have,
a very competitive
yeah,
cricketer who stood up to
almost an
Australia.
Australian who isn't an Australian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think Indian fans over the years, they've cried out for someone to stand up to Australia, right? And this Virat Kohli did that. He's done that over the
Absolutely.
years. Now, they're driving the fast bowling revolution. You're 100% right. He and Shastri, they identify that we've got to fix up our fitness. We've got to fix up our fast bowling. Otherwise, we're going to continue to struggle overseas. Remember, they lost 1-0 in New Zealand, 1-0 in South Africa, 3-1 in England before the 2014-15 Border Gavaskar Trophy. So they lost basically 4 series in a row when he took over. They were seventh, ranked seventh in the world.
Yeah,
Now, since then, they've been towards the top. Yeah, absolutely. India become a team that can win more overseas. That's definitely the
absolutely.
case. On Virat Kohli, though, the
Well,
next question we've got is thoughts on Virat's future in red ball cricket. That's from cricket_cricket Sparsh, Sparsh Talang. Now, I'll
uh,
answer this first. If he has a poor Border Gavaskar trophy and struggles, it might be time to look beyond Virat. And that's a massive thing to say, but it's 4 years and he's averaging 32 in the last 4, 5 years.
look, I think it is it is difficult to look. I don't think he'll be dropped as such. I think he himself will just go, okay, this is time for me
Yes. And
to
if he has a poor
retire.
series in Australia, that might trigger him to say, yeah, okay.
I think that's on his mind for a while now. I think he still has that hunger to score runs, but the mind. I mean, we are no one to speak about Virat Kohli's mental strength, to be honest. But um, as a batter, the way he's getting out, the way he's still running his heart out. He's still trying to score runs. His shot making is still like he's a
He
21
looks
year
good
old.
in patches, doesn't he? I mean, he's 70 in the second innings at Bengaluru was good.
Oh, it
And
was glorious.
he looks good for a little while, but then there's something out of nowhere that happens and gets himself out a lot of the time.
Absolutely. And look, uh, if the Border Gavaskar Trophy doesn't go well for him, I think he should hang up the boots in Test cricket. I
Mm.
think I love him too much to see him struggle,
Mm.
and I do feel he will come good in Border Gavaskar Trophy, even if he scores 200s. You know that's easier said than done, and
India will
it's a
be very happy with
big
that if he can
ask.
hit 200s. But
But 200s out of 10 innings, 5 Test matches,
well, I
I
think
think
he's hit
that'll be a
200s in
great
his
feat.
last 52 test innings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
51, 52
and
test. He's hit 200s.
I
So,
mean we know he's good. I mean we know he's
of
still the
course.
prized wicket for any bowling attack and for any
Listen,
team.
that's not to
So
say he can't come here and perform. He's got it
yeah,
in
absolutely. He's I mean
The last test against New Zealand is key. If he can get runs there, give him some confidence. You
he
never
loves
know.
Australia. Ever since coming here 2011, he has scored 100 every series, I think, except the
Mm.
2020-21 where he played just one Test match. And I think it's been brilliant watching him on Australian
It's been
decks and
great.
Australian
Uh,
grounds.
I hope from an Australian perspective that we get the better of him. But I do, as a Virat Kohli fan myself, you want to see him keep going in Test cricket for as long as possible because he is an advocate for the game.
Yep.
He loves red ball cricket. He loves Test cricket. But
Yep.
anyway, we'll see what happens going forward there. But if he has a bad series, might be the end. Another question from Debashish Sarangi at Plum underscore in front. In your opinion, what changes should India make for the final test against New Zealand?
Look, I think knowing the Mumbai deck,
Mm.
I'll bring Siraj back if he's
Yep,
fit and not. I mean, Akashdeep was just a liability in the end in the second Test match.
he
I mean,
wasn't used,
he's
was
still
he?
a yeah, he's still a good bowler.
He's a good bowler.
Not don't get me wrong,
Would
but
you
I
play
think
three seamers or
look, I won't change the spinner. Like, who would you drop? That's the question because
yeah,
Sundar has had a great Test match,
true.
and obviously you can't drop Ashwin and Jadeja. So it's either Akashdeep goes and Siraj comes in, and
Yeah,
you can't chop and change too much. Um,
agree with that.
and I
Yes.
think the batting will stay the same as well. And
Yeah, I
it's
think it
really
will.
high time Shubman. We haven't even spoken about Shubman Gill. It's high time he steps up and shows what he's got. Because if he doesn't have a good Test match and a good Border Gavaskar Trophy, his position is on the line as well. His role is on the line as well because he can't be doing that at number three.
Agree.
He can't. He number three. He has to be the one stabilizing the innings. He has to be the one playing the long innings in the top four.
And we saw that with Pujara, didn't we, over such a long
Exactly.
period?
Exactly.
I agree with you. I think that's applicable to a number of players in the Indian batting lineup. And to be fair, Australia are in that similar boat where we've got players out of form or players needing to step up in this upcoming series as well. So very, very interesting times indeed. And that brings us on to our final couple of questions in a bit of a different light here, talking more around T20 cricket. So first question here from Robin at Robin underscore rounder with the 100, inviting private investors. How practical is it in the BBL? How do you see the tournament surviving with how it's currently going, and how big can it be with potential private IPL investors? I don't see it happening. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. And I think the reason for that is I don't think Cricket Australia want to relinquish control. And
Yep.
the thing is that the challenge in Australia is it's the Test cricket and the BBL goes together. So we don't usually get the Test stars playing in the BBL for the majority of the season because it's a very particular window in Australia where cricket peaks. It's very seasonal here.
Yep.
So when Test cricket is going, BBL is going strong because that's when cricket's peaking. So that they both work well together
Yep.
in a sense.
Look, I think a lot of outside fans don't understand how the Big Bash is really set up.
Yeah,
And for those who are not completely aware of how the Big Bash is set up, unlike all of the other franchise leagues that happen, except I think New Zealand maybe, Cricket Australia has ownership on all the Big Bash teams. It's not a privately they are not privately owned teams. For
correct.
example, an Adelaide Strikers team comes under the same umbrella as a South Australian Cricket Association. So they are controlled by the SACA. The employees are essentially SACA employees. They are not Adelaide Strikers is not a separate entity as well.
Correct.
Um, the Hobart Hurricanes is not separate from Cricket Tasmania. Melbourne Strikers and Melbourne Renegades, sorry, Melbourne Stars and Melbourne
Yeah.
Renegades come under Cricket Victoria. So
Correct.
that's how it's set up. It's set up under the state entities. It's set up under the state
Yep.
associations. So Cricket Australia has full control on all decisions, except
Correct.
yes, there are different teams. Like let's say uh, you are an employee of Melbourne Renegades and Cricket Victoria, but no one is just a Melbourne Renegade employee. I mean, there are some changes here and there with general managers and on all those, but they all report to
Mm.
one CEO of Cricket Victoria. So it's that's how it's set up. So having private investors means Cricket Australia and the state associations will have to give up their share of the money of the pot, and I don't see that happening.
That would be a big problem because the reason is those private investors will want the best Australian players available.
Yep.
So what does that mean for our test team? What does that mean for test cricket as well? That means that they'll want Travis Head playing in the BBL, Steve Smith, Marnus, etc. They'll all want them playing in the BBL because they want the best quality cricket for the best return on investment. And
Yep.
then you've got a situation where in a very seasonal sport where you've got a few months where everything peaks, what happens? Do you put your BBL later? That won't work. You put your BBL earlier, that won't work. Test cricket, if you move it away from the traditional dates, that won't work. So it creates a lot of problems. That's my opinion on that.
Absolutely.
And that ties into our last question from Vida Jayashankar at Jay Shan. New Zealand cricket at its all-time highs in the last week. The World T20 in the women's and the Black Caps winning in India. Is it right time for New Zealand to go franchise? They have a Super Smash T20 league every year. Is it right to maybe rebrand and go franchise? I don't know. I think it depends on how New Zealand would do it, when they would do it. Do they get private investors? What's going to be the strategy behind it? It's an option,
Look, I
but
think
I'm not sure.
it is an option. The thing is, cricket's still not that big of a game in New Zealand. Yes, it is a summer sport, but I mean, the biggest game is rugby. So
Yes.
that's where all the cricket-like things happen from an Indian point of view, if I can put it that way. So, or that's where rugby players are held to a higher standard. They're
Yep.
questioned every single day,
Yep.
and that they are almost legends and gods in New Zealand.
Yes,
That's
they
where
are.
all the hype and all the money and all the fame is, and not cricket. Cricket is much more of a secondary sport, so to say, in New Zealand, and uh, that's why this win in India matters even more.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
uh, New Zealand always play with their heart out. So, but giving up an ownership again, coming back to the BBL point,
Yeah.
giving up ownership of the teams means less money for maybe for the state teams. In
Yeah,
in in a
possibly.
in a in a time when New Zealand is not amongst the richest in the world, and
Yep.
um, that means just giving up more money to the private investors.
You're right. I mean, it depends on the financial aspects of it, comparing it and having a look at what it does for your cricket, because you can get that initial investment in from the investors, of course, but what are you relinquishing? That's the big thing for New Zealand and Australia
True, true.
to get with their T20 cricket. Thanks, Nash. Thanks, everyone, for
Thank
listening. We
you.
hope you enjoyed this episode. Congratulations to New Zealand on the win. Commiserations to India. And I do hope, from an Australian perspective, that another loss is coming in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. That would be nice. We'll be
Another loss
discussing.
for Australia, you mean?
Nah, loss for India because you've just lost.
Oh, okay.
You've
Yep,
just
fair
lost.
enough.
Three
Fair
weeks to
enough.
go. 3 weeks to go.
All
Exactly.
right.
Pretty
We'll
much.
be
So
here.
look forward to it. We'll be here
Thank you.
covering all that. Thanks, everyone. You can catch us on
Thank you.
at
See
CricBlog
ya.
Pod on X and Instagram, by the way. So follow us there to get all the reels and stay in touch. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.